Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the second Luminosity Invitational, which looks to be much better than the first one. First things first, you're going to go from 10 players to 16 players, which is obviously a huge upgrade, but you're also going to have a couple of invaders at this event that make it extra spicy. For Group A, you're going to have Spargo, Zomba, Leo, and Zap. For Group B, you're going to have Sonics, Shiny Mark, Light, and Cola. For Group C, you're going to have Shootone, Tweak, Gluttony, and Mars. And for Group D, you're going to have Shattuck, Osimo, Meister, and Debut. And in Group Luck, I forgot to mention it, but this graphic that I'm using here with the head-to-heads was made by the THEIF of Light on Twitter. His link will be down below. Please check him out because he makes a bunch of just really, really cool graphics. But back to whatever I was saying. Starting off with pool number 1, you're going to have Spargo, Zomba, Leo, and Zap. And let's get the elephant out of the room here in Zap. He's going to be at a huge disadvantage for every single set that he's going into at this event. There's 3 big reasons for that. The first one is going to be that he's playing Bowser Jr. The character is just not as good as the other characters in this event. Like, after Bowser Jr., the worst character of this event is probably ZSS, who is, like, at worst a high-tier character, and then everyone else is, like, an uncontested top tier. So that's definitely a little bit rough for Zap. The second thing is going to be that he's never played at an event like this. Maybe he's played at Invitationals before, but not at an Invitational where the caliber of play is this high. And the third and final thing is simply going to be the fact that every other player at this event at some point in their career has been ranked in the top 20, and Zap has been able to break into the top 100 in 2023, I think it was, but don't quote me on that one. But obviously, there's going to be a bit of a difference in the skill there. Now, to Zap's credit, he still had to qualify for this event, beating some really good players, most notably Riddles, who is someone that you would expect to see at an event like this. So isn't it possible for Zap to take a set? No, I think it's actually very possible for him to take a set. He's got a lot of tricks with Bowser Jr. that people are not going to be ready for, but he's going to be in a huge disadvantage, both character-wise and also skill-wise, pretty much every matchup he goes into. And the other players in Pool 1 are going to be Leo, Zomba, and Spargo. And I should mention that these head-to-heads are from 2023 and onwards. And I actually think that Leo is going to make the upset here over Zomba. In their last, I think, 2 sets, he has been unbelievably dominant. Like, it's just so clear-cut in Leo's favor that he is the person in control there, and I expect it to be the exact same thing this time around. Then you're going to have Leo versus Spargo, and that one I think is really tricky. They haven't played since Smash Factory, where you did have Spargo taking it, but it's a 50-50 with both of these guys playing the best they have played in, I'll say it, years. Like, you haven't seen Leo looking this good since he was, like, the best player in the world, and I don't think you've ever seen Spargo looking this good. I think this is the best Smash he's ever played, and because of that, I am going to be picking him to win that, but it's going to be a very, very close set. And for Zomba Spargo, you actually have Zomba winning their last set at Genesis, but I am still going to be going with Spargo here because, you know, as I just mentioned, form-wise, I think Spargo has been unbelievable right now. So the way I think this group is going to go, you're going to have Spargo as our first seed, Leo as our second seed, Zomba as our third seed, and then Zap is going to be coming in fourth. And then for Luck, I should mention that you have Leo winning their last 3 sets, not the last 2 sets over Zomba. He went twice at Warehouse War, so that's probably where I got confused. Next up is Pool 2 with Sonic, Shiny Mark, Light, and Cola. And for my money, this is the hardest pool of the event. Maybe Pool C or 3 as well, whichever one you want to call it. I think that should be considered, but it's between those two, in my opinion. You're going to have Cola as the bottom seed for this pool, and I do think that he is going to finish as the bottom seed as well. He's got Sonics as the top seed, which is definitely a tough draw, considering he's got an 0-3 record there. Now, Roy does decent in that matchup. It's not unwinnable. Sonics is just, like, really, really good at it. You're going to have Shiny Mark as well. That's another situation where I think Roy, especially relative to most of the cast, is decent against Pikachu, but I think the way that Shiny Mark plays the game, which is, you know, he's going to camp you, it is going to tilt Cola. He's a player that tilts pretty easily, and that can be both to his boon, but can also be to his detriment. It really does just depend how often he's actually going to be able to land his hits on Shiny Mark. And to be honest, I think that's going to be a lot easier said than done. So I'm going to say Shiny Mark wins that one. Then you have Cola versus Light. I think that's the most likely matchup for him to win, considering that he's beaten Light before. I don't think the matchup is super swingy into either character's favor. I would still expect Light to win this one, just because form-wise recently he has been a bit better, but this should be like a super, super close set. It's always a banger when the Moist Boys play. Then you're going to have Light versus Shiny Mark, and that is going to be heavily in Shiny Mark's favor. They've never played before, and who knows, maybe Esam's style of Pikachu was just really good versus Fox, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it is just going to be a miserable matchup for Light. He's going to get edge guarded, he's not going to be able to get his opening engagement, and he's going to lose. Then you're going to have Light versus Sonics, and I honestly have no idea who is going to win that one. I would favor Sonics if I had to favor someone, just considering in their more recent encounters, he has been coming out on top, but I'm sure Light has put a lot of practice into that Sonic matchup. You know, it's always a good feeling to have a super dominant record over like a top 5 player in the world, but once you lose that, especially as someone like Light, he is absolutely going to be fiending for it back. So really excited to see those two guys play. I am slightly going to give it to Sonics though, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to be giving Shiny Mark the win over Sonics. They haven't played since Smash Factor, but hey, he came out on top at Smash Factor. So I'm going to say Shiny Mark is the first seed of this pool, Sonics is the second seed, Light is the third seed, and Cola is the fourth seed. Next up is Pool 3 with Shootone, Tweak, Gluttony, and Mars. As I mentioned when I was talking about Pool B, I think this is in contention for the hardest pool of the tournament. And I think Shootone is going to be coming out on top this time around. He's going to win against Mars because it's Olimar versus ESS. That matchup is really difficult for Zero Suit. And he also has an Aegis that he can play, which is also extremely difficult for Zero Suit. He's going to win versus Gluttony because it is Olimar versus Europe, which is like all I really have to say. But also it's a 3-0 record there. Then Tweak is a little bit harder for me to sell, but I do think that Olimar beats Diddy Kong, even if it is just slightly, and that's kind of all I have to work with here. They haven't played in recent memory. You do have Aegis as a secondary for Shootone, which he could go into, not a terrible choice versus Diddy Kong. I don't think that Tweak should be going his secondary of Sephiroth versus Aegis or Olimar, so Tweak kind of locked into that one character of Diddy. Shootone has a little bit more creativity of what he can do in that set, though I do think that Olimar is going to be the primary character that he uses in this group. I'd honestly be pretty surprised if we saw the Aegis at all in this group, except aside from Mars, because again, the matchup is just really good for both characters there. So yeah, I think Shootone is going to be the first seed of pool number 3. But then I think it's going to get a little bit messy. I think Tweak, Gluttony, and Mars are all going to be taking one set, but they're all going to be losing one set. I think Tweak is going to be taking his set versus Mars because he has a winning record on him in recent history, but also he's got like a 10-0 record or something crazy on Mars. He's never lost to Mars throughout the state of Smash Ultimate. Probably not going to start here, but I do think that Tweak is going to lose to Gluttony. Gluttony has a 5-1 record against Tweak in recent memory. He's been extremely dominant there, so I would expect Gluto to win that one, but I would expect Mars to actually come out on top versus Gluttony. They played at Genesis, not the most recent Genesis, the one before that, where you did have Gluttony coming out on top. Then they played twice at KawaiiCon, Mars winning one set and Gluttony winning one set, and that was before Mars was like just straight up before he was good at this game, which I think he is currently good at this game. He looked amazing at Supernova, and Gluttony's form has been a little bit shaky recently. Now, to his credit, it's been a lot better in the latter half of the year, but relative to what we usually see from him, he hasn't been playing at peak. So Mars coming into this event looking really hot, to be honest. Gluttony coming into this event looking a little bit lukewarm. I definitely think there's the possibility for the upset right here. So you're going to have Shootone coming out as the top seed of the event, and then you're going to have a 3-way tie between Tweak, Gluttony, and Mars, and I have no idea how they are actually going to decide tiebreakers at this event. I don't know if it's going to be game count, if they're actually going to make them play tiebreakers like a best of one situation here. So what I am going to be going with is just the order that they have in the Shootone, Tweak, Gluttony, and Mars. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to be having it Shootone, Gluttony, Tweak, and Mars because I think it is more likely for Gluttony to beat Tweak than it is for Mars to beat Gluttony. So yeah, that's the order I'm going to have. Shootone in first, Gluttony in second, Tweak in third, and Mars in fourth. Editing for a block, I just wanted to give Gluto a little bit more credit than I did initially because he was actually able to do super well at these 2 European events, winning Regen as well as getting a 3rd place at UFA. So form-wise, a lot better than I actually made it up to be in that original discussion. Now, with all that being said, I still think that Mars has a very real chance of winning that set, and I would still favor him to win that set because he's just been... but Gluttony clearly also looking pretty good. Should not be slept on. And our final pool is going to have Shattuck, Osimo, Meister, and the Buzz. And this was the hardest pool for me to decide the order of because of Osimo. He just literally ruined everything, and I'll explain that in just a second. But the format way I did it was kind of similar to pool 3, where I have Shattuck coming out as our top seed. He's going to have a 3-3 record versus the Buzz, but of their recent encounters, he's been a lot more successful. And I do think that Corrin beats Rosalina. He's going to have a 2-0 record on Meister, and I think Corrin beats Game Watch. And he's going to have a 0-0 record versus Osimo, but I think Corrin destroys Ryu. Like, that matchup is miserable. You get heavily out disjointed. You have no use out of focus because Corrin just does another aerial by the time you're halfway through your focus, and also the advantage state is just awesome for Corrin. She gets to hit you like it is nothing. So yeah, I think Shattuck's going to be the top seed of this pool, but then we have a 3-way tie between DeBuzz, Meister, and Osimo. I think DeBuzz should come out on top versus Meister. Really difficult matchup for Game Watch, to the point where me had picked up Steve because Rosalina Game Watch is that bad. I'm sure there were other reasons as well, but that was a major factor for him doing that, and we've also seen Meister kind of doing that, not with Steve, but he's trying out other characters for this Rosalina matchup. So if there's any way to show how bad the matchup is, it's getting a Game Watch player to play someone else. Like, those are dire strafes. So DeBuzz should win that one. I do think that Osimo would beat DeBuzz. He's beaten him in their only encounter. That matchup is a little bit weird because Ryu destroys Luma like it's nothing, but also Down B completely no negates Fireball as a thing that you can use in neutral, which is obviously very, very annoying. But just considering that he's done it before, I think he can do it again. And then finally, you're going to have Meister versus Osmo. Not only has Meister beaten Osmo in their only encounter, but Mia's got like a 16-1 or 15-1, something crazy record on Osmo. And I'm aware that is Mia, but still, it just shows the matchup really, really bad. And even though I think Osmo is decent at the matchup, he hasn't been able to quite figure it out. Now, the reason that I said Osmo made this group very controversial is because even with all this in mind, I think Corrin's awful matchup. Game Watch, awful matchup. Rosalina, morally ambiguous matchup. I still think that Osmo could be the first seed of this group because the way that he played at Sumobato SP51 was like unbelievable. He just was so good at that event. So this is the way that I'm going to do. I'm going to have Shattuck as our first seed. I'm going to have Osmo as our second seed because I believe his form is going to be good enough to win him one of those bad matches versus either Shattuck or Meister. I'm going to have DeBuzz as our third seed because I think he's going to be Meister. And then I'm going to have Meister as our fourth seed. So really the most important matchup of this pool is going to be Meister versus Osmo because it's the difference between a fourth seed and a second seed or third seed, I guess, potentially for Meister. I don't really want to get to the intricacies of it there, but yeah, that's my order. Shattuck, Osmo, DeBuzz, and Meister. Now that we've gotten the pools out of the way, we can finally start talking about the main bracket. This graphic right here was made by the lovely ICOOKIEMONSTERZ. Their link will be down below. Be sure to check them out and sub while you're down there. But our first matchup in the winner's side is going to be Spargo versus Sonic, which is a crazy matchup to have before top 8. And also, I should say, I'm pretty sure this is how the bracket is going to feed out into the main top 16 part. I just use the exact same format that the Invitational used. If this is not how it actually ends up working out, unfortunate, but hopefully it is. For our first matchup, though, you're going to have Sonics versus Spargo. Like I said, crazy to happen before top 8. And the big boon for Spargo in this matchup is obviously going to be that he has so many different characters that he can play. Cloud, Aegis, Roy, Corrin, all are at his disposal. But the obviously negative of that is going to be the fact that Sonics has been grinding against like every single one of those characters. He's improving in all of those matchups rapidly. So it's going to kind of be a race between Spargo and Sonics who can like figure out the character first. Is it Spargo or is it Sonics? And from what we've seen, it seems like Spargo got a couple more tricks up his sleeve before Sonics catches up to him. So I'm going to say that he ends up winning that one. Then you're going to have Shattuck versus Gluttony. And I believe the last time that these guys played was actually at Genesis. Again, not the recent, no, the recent Genesis. So a little bit ago at this point, but you do have Shattuck taking that set. And I am going to be going with him to win this one as well because I just think Corrin does really well into Wario. When you are a character that hits with your face, it's just super tough to play against this massive dish on, especially a character like Wario who is really reliant on you kind of messing up and landing on him so he can get an up tilt, so he can get a landing up air. I mean, he can get a landing up air without you landing on him, but you know what I mean by that. This is a character where he wants to be up close and personal and he gets to punish you massively on those mistakes, but Shattuck is never going to be up close and personal. He's always going to be playing that spacey game. It's going to be really hard for Gluttony to get his hits, and because of that, I do think that you are going to have Shattuck taking that. Next up is going to be Shiny Mark versus Leo, and you would heavily favor Shiny Mark here. Leo just doesn't have a solution for Pikachu in his roster, which is a crazy thing to say because he's got so many characters, but Meta Knight's not the choice, Joker's not the choice, Violet's not the choice, Aegis isn't the choice. Roy is probably the best character that he has available to play into Pikachu, but I don't think that his Roy is going to be up to snuff to be able to take out Shiny Mark. Now, I think it's possible for him to win it with the Joker as well, just because Joker is a good enough character to beat Pikachu, even though I definitely think that Pikachu wins that matchup, and also Leo's Joker is just, like, clearly his best character. So it's not impossible for Leo to win this, but he's definitely going to be fighting an uphill battle here versus Shiny Mark. Maybe the Meta Knight will do something crazy, though. I don't know. He's looking pretty good at that Japan trip. Then you're going to have Shutone versus Osmo, speaking of Japan, and Shutone is going to be the heavy favorite in this set, even though Osmo has been playing on Cloud 9 recently. No pun intended. He's sponsored by a different team. Shutone has like an 8-2 record or 9-2 record, something like super dominant in his favor, and he's also been playing amazingly form-wise, so you would expect him to win that one. Onto the loser side of the bracket, starting off with Meister versus Tweak. And I think this is the trickiest loser side matchup to talk about, which is, why I started with it, because you do have Meister winning his last 3 encounters versus Tweak. All Game & Watch versus Diddy Kong, except for their most recent encounter, which was at LSI, which was Sephiroth versus Game & Watch. So Tweak has 2 characters that he can go versus Game & Watch. One is a bad character that does really well into Game & Watch, in my opinion, and another one is a very good character that doesn't do amazing into Game & Watch. But you do have Tweak going on record to say that he thinks Diddy Kong beats Game & Watch, but he just doesn't know how to incorporate it into his game plan. I'm definitely paraphrasing him there, but more or less that's what he said. So until Tweak has shown that he, can figure out how Diddy Kong is actually able to beat Game & Watch, I do think that Meister is going to be the favorite in that set. Then you're going to have Zap versus Light, and I know I said at the start of the video, Zap is going to be at a heavy disadvantage in every single set that he goes into, and this isn't an exception. But if Zap were to beat anyone at this event, I would expect it to be Light. Y'all gotta remember, Light lost to Ketchup at MSM like 420 or 240 for that qualifying spot at Summit. He's lost to a Bowser Jr. player before. I also think Bowser Jr. has some decent tools versus Fox, where it's not an unwinnable matchup. This is possible for Zap. But I'm still definitely going to be going with Light to win it. Then you're going to have Mars versus DeBuzz, and you would expect DeBuzz to be the favorite of this set. I don't know if he would play Olimar or Rosalina. I think both are solid choices into ZSS, and if I recall correctly, the last time he played Mars, which I believe was at the most recent Supernova, he does end up beating him with the, not the ZSS, goddamn, the Rosalina. So obviously that's going to be a huge boon for DeBuzz because he now has two characters that he can go. Both Rosalina and Olimar are going to be on the table there, and because of that, I do think that DeBuzz is going to win that one. And then finally, you're going to have Cola versus Zomba, and this is just like a terrible draw for Zomba. He has a, I believe, 8-2, or no, a 2-8 record versus Cola. Cola winning their last 4 encounters, just very dominant there. I don't know if it's a Roy thing or a Cola thing, or maybe a little bit of both, but end of the day, the last thing you want to see if you're a Zomba fan is Cola in your bracket. Editing proof block. The last time Mars and DeBuzz played was at Collision, not at Supernova, but you do have him winning with the Rosalina there. So again, Rosalina and Olimar are both tools that he has had success with. In losers round 2, you're going to have Osimo Cola as our first matchup, and I have no idea how this set is going to go, but I'm very excited for it. You have that rush down aggression of Cola versus that also rush down aggression of Osimo. Both these guys just hit so hard as well. I'm just so excited for this set. I'm going to be going with Osimo because, again, form-wise has been like top 10 in the world, but should be a banger. Then you're going to have MK Leo versus DeBuzz, and unfortunately for the fans at home, no, I don't think DeBuzz is going to win the one. I do think that Leo is going to be the heavy favorite going into that set, and I don't think that I really need to elaborate there. Then you're going to have Gluttony versus Light. Now, they haven't played since, I believe, Rewired Fest, where you do have Gluttony coming out on top, and I think if the matchup were to progress in a character's favor, it would progress more so into Wario's favor, just because the offstage gameplay is so strong for Wario. Down air literally just invalidates Fox as a character offstage. Like, that is such a nightmare, especially when you're playing against someone like Gluttony, who has like the best timings in the world. So that is going to be difficult for Light to overcome. Now, every other aspect of the matchup, Light's got a very good shot, even favored in a lot of those aspects, but I do think it's going to be the edge guarding that pushes it over the edge for Gluttony to take that one. And then you're going to have Sonics versus Meister, and this is another situation kind of like DeBuzz versus Leo, where it's just like a really dominant record for Sonics, and until I see Meister break that streak, I'm going to keep going with Sonics. And now we're at that top 8, starting off with Spargo versus Shattuck. And they played 4 times before. You have Shattuck winning one of those sets and Spargo winning 3 of them, including their last 2 encounters, the most recent one being at Supernova. And it was honestly a pretty dominant win at Supernova, if I recall correctly, from Spargo. And I do think that he is going to be winning this time around. Again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but it's just honestly very valid point. Spargo's been playing unbelievably well. He's been looking like the best player in the world, and especially in a Sorority Ditto where it's fundamental versus fundamental, who's going to win? I'm going to be going with Spargo there. But Shattuck is also like insane at this game. He's definitely got a shot in this set, but Spargo just feels untouchable right now, at least in my opinion he is. Then you're going to have Shiny Mark versus Shootone. This one's really interesting because I actually think Olimar does pretty well into Pikachu. I see that matchup being even, at least in my opinion. I think Aegis is also decent into Pikachu. Obviously, Edgeguard is going to be a huge boon for the character, but aside from that, you are able to catch up with Pika in the neutral. But Shootone isn't going to be ready. He's not going to be ready for Shiny Mark because they don't even have Pikachus in Japan. I don't think they know Pikachus in the game. I think they think it's just Pichu because they have Pichu players over there and they do pretty well. But there aren't any Pikachus on the level, of course, of Shiny Mark in Japan. I mean, there's no Pikachus on the level of Shiny Mark in the entire world. But Shootone is going to be in the unknown. He's not going to be in his element. Shiny Mark should be ready for Aegis. He should be ready for Olimar. Those are characters that are common enough where he shouldn't be getting caught off guard and he should be taking that set. Next up is Leo versus Osimo. They played twice before. Leo taking their first set at the first ever LSI, the Ludwig one, so that was a while ago. And then Osimo winning a very recent set at Supernova. Matchup-wise, I would slightly favor Joker here, but not to the point where I would decide it's Leo winning because the matchup is good for Joker. And actually, I think Osimo is going to be the one who comes out on top here, not only because, you know, he beat Leo at Supernova, but he just looks so good at Sumobato SP51. You also had Leo trying out the Aegis at Supernova. Another pretty good choice into Ryu and not coming out on top. Now, I think this is going to be a very competitive set because form-wise, Leo and Osmo have just been looking incredible recently, but Osmo has just been looking that little bit better, and he also has that recent encounter at Supernova on his side, so that's going to be tilting enough points toward his favor. Then you're going to have Gluttony versus Sonics, and Sonics is going to be the heavy favorite going into this set. I don't believe that Gluttony has ever beaten Sonics before, and it's only going to get harder to do so as he continues to get better and as the matchup continues to get worse. It's just a very difficult one for Warrior. Maybe it's not getting like exponentially worse every time they play, but I can tell you what, it's definitely not getting any better. Next up is Shattuck versus Osimo, and it's going to be the exact same thing as the pools phase, where I just expect Shattuck to come out on top just because that matchup is really difficult for Ryu. But to Osimo's credit, Shattuck has not played a player of Osimo's caliber on that Ryu, and Osimo has played Neo multiple times before. Now, he's lost almost every single set he's had versus Neo, so maybe that's not the best piece of information to use, but I do think that Osimo is going to be more prepared for this matchup than Shattuck is. But I just don't think it's going to matter, to be honest. Then you're going to have Shootone versus Sonics. Sonics gets that run back. He always does, and he always wins the run back as well. Like, it's actually a crazy rate. If you beat Sonics at one tournament, he is beating you at the next tournament, and it's almost a guarantee. So because of that, I think Sonics is going to take that. And we've got our top four. Spargo, Shiny Mark in the winner side, and Shattuck Sonics in the loser side. All S players in the top four. I didn't even notice that. But for Spargo versus Shiny Mark, they've obviously played a ton online, not as much offline, but from both online and offline results, usually Spargo is going to be the one coming out on top. I'm not super sure if he's going to be playing the Cloud or the Aegis, but I just think the experience is going to come through here for Spargo. And he's used to fighting Wi-Fi Pikachu, and I think Wi-Fi Pikachu is harder to fight against. It's also hard to play as the Pikachu player just because your combos are harder, but it's harder to react to Quick Attack, it's harder to react to Diesel, it's just harder to react in general. But now you're going to have Spargo offline with his like half a frame reactions. He's going to be able to see Pikachu going from one side of the stage to the other and maybe actually be able to do something about it. So yeah, I do think that Spargo is going to be winning that one. Then you're going to have Shattuck versus Sonics in the loser side of the bracket, and I'm going to go with Shattuck to make the upset here. The streak is broken, guys. You know what? Sonics doesn't have to get top 2 anymore. I'm safe to predict him outside of that. And as I've said before, I think Horn does pretty well into Sonic. You do have Sonics winning his last couple encounters versus Shattuck, and he is very good at the matchup. But straight up, I'm just giving Shattuck faith here that he has put in his homework this time around. He has put the research in and done whatever it takes to be able to get this dub. For our losers finals, you're going to have Shiny Mark versus Shattuck, and this is going to be a 2-1 record in Shiny Mark's favor, with him winning the first and the last set, and Jen Shattuck winning that middle set right there. I believe it was at Santa Paws, and the most recent one being at Diamond Dust. So slightly in Shiny Mark's favor overall, and I would also slightly favor him in this set, and I would slightly favor Pikachu versus Corn. There's just a bunch of really, really small differences that I think are going to push Shiny Mark over the edge on this one, but I would expect this to be an extremely close set. Honestly, every single set Shattuck's in is either going to be extremely close or he's going to win. And there's literally no in between. But I think Shiny Mark's going to win that one. You get Spargo, Shiny Mark in that grand finals. And I mean, it was already filled out for me. I do think that Spargo is going to be winning it. It feels like he's just got Shiny Mark's number 4 now. And who knows, maybe this is the event where it could change. And it absolutely could change. Shiny Mark has a lot of win conditions versus Spargo. It is not impossible, but Spargo just seems to be the victor of a majority of their encounters. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.